Hello everybody and welcome to the Fenrir School podcast, where we are going live answering all of your questions to help you in whatever way we can. Are you now live looking at the questions, my dear?
Yeah, so I can move over a bit, can't I?
Yeah, as long as you remember to not let the camera go off.
Right, okay. Someone's getting a Frenchie puppy in 2 weeks. They've also got a 5-year-old bull mastiff.
Cool mix.
I love a Frenchie. Someone said, how are you? Do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Thank you for asking. Fine, thanks. It's the only response a man can ever give, isn't it?
There's no other appropriate response.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
That's not just a man, that's in general.
I'm alright. Alright,
If
Gav.
you were like, oh, I'm actually really bad, then the person panics This is an interesting question. What car should I get for a Connie Corso?
A big one that you don't mind getting drool all over. Like those, I tell you what, those are questions that are like that's a legitimate question that a lot of people don't think about. Like we got a new big 4x4, and even we're like, probably not big enough for our English Mastiff. Yeah.
If it was just one of them at a time, it would be fine. But we've got to take them to the vets tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that's
So genuinely thinking about having to get a van again, so that we can take all the dogs somewhere at once. It's a good question. A big one with a big boot. You can get those I know Jason and Bruce Wayne have a hammock, one of those hammocks on the back seat that protects your seat, and that's a good way that you can do it. It's a good space.
It depends if you need all 4 seats in your car, doesn't it? 'Cause,
we have kids, so we need all the seats, so the dogs have to go in the boot.
Just fold it down.
Yeah.
Have a really big space.
Get an estate car. I don't know if they have estate cars in America.
Well, isn't it? Yeah. Is that where the back's
like a Volvo estate where they're longer?
Where they look like a funeral car?
Yeah, kind of like that. A big one, and don't be precious about it, 'cause you'll get fur and drool wherever the dog goes.
So many people love hearting. Sorry, there's too many questions. Someone said, are you adding videos to the Perfect Puppy course or updating it?
So we are. Rachel did a little sneak peek behind the scenes on Instagram stories earlier. I'm completely refilming the Perfect Puppy course, but it's not necessarily going to change. So those of you at home that are following the Perfect Puppy course, it's going to stay the same kind of process. We're just updating the quality of it. We're adding more practical demonstrations. I'll be completely open and honest. One of the kind of bits of feedback we get is I always have done my demonstrations with a role model dog. Now I do that because I believe that it's important for people to see the end product of what it should look like, because whenever you're doing it with a puppy, there's no way that it will always look the same. So if I do it with a puppy, you might be trying to follow along with the puppy, but it's a mess because it's learning for the first time and it usually doesn't go perfectly. And then if you're watching me adjust to this specific puppy and then you try and follow that at home, it then might cause issues for you at home. So I like to use one of my role model dogs that I can show it kind of perfect, and then you try and replicate that. But what we're doing with this one is all the theory academic modules, it's going to level them up, make them much better quality, more engaging. Our editors are going to work some magic with them, and then we're taking Iris, the golden retriever, from day one through the process and bringing you along on that journey as part of it as well. So it's an update mainly in quality, and the thing that'll be different will be that there'll just be some more practical demonstrations with a puppy as well as them with role model dogs.
Someone said, when will it be available? We're probably looking about a month.
Couple of months, yeah.
But what will happen is, if you've already got the course, your videos will just update to the new ones.
The way we'll do it, because we have done updates in the past, is what we'll do is we'll let you all know, and we'll add the new modules in, but we'll add them in alongside the current ones for a period of time. So it's not just and everything's gone and it's all the new stuff. You'll have both for maybe a month, and then we'll phase out the old ones and be left with the new ones. But then that way, if you really liked one of the older modules, you can go back and check it. But yeah, it's designing curriculums, updating I'm always studying myself, getting better myself, and I always want to pass that on to you guys to ensure that we're offering the best products in the world. That's kind of our foundation at Fenrir. So all of our courses will always be updated as our camera quality and stuff gets better, as my knowledge gets better, as my presenting skills get better, we always want to just be making sure that we're leveling everything up.
And who wouldn't want to see videos of cute Iris?
Iris is pretty adorable.
We first had her in when she was 8 weeks, wasn't she? So
it really is like showing me doing it each section with a brand new, like I'm doing it for the first time with her every session. So we did some really fun ones today, and doing downs, like teaching sits, like it's even like for someone that's never had a dog before, it's a really cool accomplishment, but technically it's very easy. Teaching down is like something that goes like a step up. And even for me now, the countless amounts of times I've done it, there's still, when you see that moment where the puppy gets it and you see that light bulb go off, it's just a beautiful moment. It is, obviously, as a canine behaviourist, I tend to be with older dogs fixing bad problems. A dog trainer tends to train new behaviours. So it's nice to kind of go back to basics for me, which is kind of this training stuff and dabbling with an adorable puppy, teaching it to lie down rather than a huge Rottweiler trying to tear my face off. It's a refreshing mix-up of day-to-days. Are we all good?
Yeah, I just wasn't. Mine keeps buffering, but I think it's my phone and not the live.
Cool.
While you're doing updates, USA product update.
This week. Almost certainly, yeah.
They are now in America.
Well, some of them were last time. Again, like I don't want to, because we could. So our CEO Brett filled me in on the logistics situation in our morning meeting this morning, and it completely boggled and fried my head with the imports, duties, customs, taxes, shipping. It's not like going down to your post office and sending a parcel to America. It is insane how like the complexity and like the volume that we're at, and the fact that we're international, and yet we're such a young company is almost unheard of. And we're very much kind of working that out as we go. We're a young team of people trying to do our best, so it's fun. I'm not sure if Brett would use the word fun right now. But this week,
next week, he might say.
I'm confident it's going to be this week. I know that every single pallet, every single item is there. The paperwork that we were waiting on has been resolved. It is now in the process of waiting to get cleared from the port to our distribution centre. That's like the last piece. The second it's checked into the distribution centre, we flick the switch and it goes live on the website. But obviously we could do pre-orders and stuff. I just don't feel comfortable with it. It's something that if you're going to give us your money, I want you to have excellent products with excellent service, with fast shipping. Again, I don't want to do it unless it's the best in the world. So logistics and distribution are all part of that. It's not just about the products, it's about the experience that you have with us as a company. So that means a lot to all of us here, and we're trying our best to make that the case. But let me tell you, it's if you want to set up an international e-commerce company for the first time, you've got a lot to learn.
Steep learning curve.
Very steep.
Someone said congratulations on 100k.
Thank you very much.
And then shall I actually ask you some questions?
Should we ask a dog question?
I think people are getting annoyed with me. I'm getting a Cocker Spaniel in 4 weeks. How can I help reduce separation anxiety for when I return to the office 2 days a week?
Cocker Spaniels. That is a lot of energy, be aware. They're definitely one of the breeds that come up with me significantly higher on the ratio of like a troubled one to a good one. I personally believe that's because people get them because of the way they look, and they're not necessarily prepared for the sheer level of energy and hunting prowess that a proper Cocker Spaniel has, which then makes them quite challenging if you're just essentially wanting a sofa buddy, which unfortunately I think a lot of people get. So we'll start off with saying breed like a Cocker Spaniel, be prepared for that level of energy, be prepared for that working drive, and be prepared to meet the needs that come with those things. When it comes to separation anxiety, I have no issue whatsoever. Crate training is I'm not going to say it's the only way, but I truly believe it's kind of the only way that I advocate for, because it's one of the few things I think far too few people crate train their dogs, there's a couple of things. I think walking to heel and crate training should be something that every dog owner should strive for. I really do believe that, and I think if every dog owner did that, I think the amount of dogs in shelters and euthanized, I would go as far as saying would be 95%, maybe higher, reduced. Just those two things. I think the knock-on ramifications for having those two things in place are astronomical. They're huge. Some people get a bit upset about crate training in particular, so I used to be a little bit more gentle around the subject and try and bring people along slowly, but now I'm getting a little bit more like, no, it is just the way it is, crate training. So crate training properly, what that means is creating a positive association with the crate. Awesome, get to do all the fun, airy fairy, positive only, positive reinforcement, food work to create a positive association. Then it's also letting them know that it's unacceptable for them to ramp up and be poorly behaved within the crate. That's really important. You can do that purely with verbal. So once you know they're happy and in the crate, they're in there, they start ramping up, just let them know, hey, stop. Or just a little knock on the cage, let them know, hey, no. When it gets to like level 2, come in and stop it. And then you only have to be like level 2, level 3. If you wait till they're at like full-blown meltdown mode, you're then going to find it really struggle to bring them back down. It's like a toddler that gets themselves so worked up that they can't even remember what they were worked up about. Whereas if just as they were starting to go, if you can just catch it at that point, you can stop it from happening in the first place. So that's really important with crate training. Our 7-day to perfect crate training helps with that exact process, by the way. Then when it comes time to leave and when it comes time to coming home, this is a mistake that far too many people make. You've got this cute bundle of beautiful Cocker Spaniel joy at home and you're leaving them to pop to the shop, even just to go outside, and you feel bad and you want to baby them and let them know it's going to be okay, baby, it's going to be okay. And it's a natural inclination. People want to do it. They get down and they're stroking the dog. You're anxious. That anxious energy feeds into the puppy. It gets the puppy's energy firing off, whether that's through anxiety and fear or just simply a high energy state of mind. And then you go and you leave that dog with that either anxious and fearful state of mind or a high energy state of mind, both of which leave them in a very, very poor state of mind to be left on their own. What you want to do is leave them in an extremely calm and quiet state of mind. The way you achieve that is by when you know that you're going to leave, I recommend 30 minutes before so, you cut off all contact with them in the forms of no touch, no talk, no eye contact. You essentially act like they don't even exist. Even if that is absolutely retching on your heartstrings, this is a situation where you lead because you love. It's difficult to do, it might be a little bit of tough love, but it will set them up for success because it will allow to keep that energy level almost non-existent low, so that when you leave, there's no emotion attached. When you come back home, you do exactly the same thing. Again, people's natural inclination is to drop down onto the floor, tell them how much they've missed them, boom, sending that energy level spiraling. So we leave sending them in a terrible state of mind where they then hover around and they then become used to, it becomes a learnt behavior that when you come back home, boom, that state of mind goes. So when you go, they're up here. When you come back, they're up here. And in that middle bit sits separation anxiety. If when you leave, you're down here with your energy, and when you come home, you're down here with your energy, that middle bit for your dog is a calm, relaxed, content dog to be left on their own. Inside a crate makes it even easier to do so, and you then don't have to be concerned that you're going to come back to your house being destroyed, which might not be separation anxiety, it might just be basic puppy chewing behaviour or boredom or minor frustration or just them exploring the world with their mouths. So crate training, follow those couple of tips. Like I say, we go into extreme lengths in the 7-day to perfect crate training guide. It's one of those things that it can be fixed once it's bad, but it's far easier to do right first time and just never let it become a problem.
So on the back of that, someone just asked if you could just go over the reasons to crate train. So like they said, other than providing a den for the dog, why would you crate train basically? So
think about what the common problem behaviours are with dogs, and remember I did a story about this earlier and it was interesting actually. The response has been far higher. I was talking about how to a 99.8% DNA match basis, you essentially live with a wolf, a wild grey wolf in your home, and you need to treat them as such. Bringing them into our homes is very unnatural for a dog. It's not how they are accustomed to live. We think it is, but for their DNA, their genetics, they're not hardwired to live in a world with this kind of furniture and rooms and doors and confinement in that way. It's not natural. So when we bring a dog into our home, for us to expect them to understand what it is that we want from them from day one is incredibly, I wouldn't say cruel, but it's really unfair to the dog. You're massively setting them up to fail by doing that. You need to slowly, gradually and surely teach them what the rules, boundaries and expectations of your home are. The best way for you to do that is to start from a small spot in the middle, which is the crate, and then slowly coming outside of that crate, giving them little tiny bits more freedom at a time. When they achieve success, they can get a little bit more. And you always have the fallback of coming back into that crate. So that's things like toilet training will be significantly easier when you crate train your dog. Make no mistake about it, significantly easier when you crate train your dog. Chewing behaviours, which are incredibly common to nearly all dogs. When they're confined to the crate, the only thing they can chew are the things that you leave for them to chew. So they then become positively associated with the right things to chew. So then when we give them that little bit more freedom over time, we leave their toys, they're then drawn to chew on the things that they know and have become accustomed to chew. Destructive behaviours, very natural. Separation anxiety, absolutely. If you do crate training properly, again, like you mentioned in the question, you are providing a safe, comfortable and happy den. And anyone that says dogs aren't content and happy to be that way just doesn't understand canine psychology and has never experienced enough to truly understand. Come to our house, and Eileen, our English Mastiff, is crate trained. She doesn't need to be now. She's impeccably trained around the home. Give her space, and I guarantee you go, where's Eileen? She will be under something. She'll be under a chair. She's always takes herself down to my office and she's under the table, tucks herself round the back. I've got like a Jack Daniels barrel in my man cave. She'll squeeze herself round the back of that. Dogs like to be denned when they want to calm down and relax. When she's in the paddock, we've got a big 2-acre paddock, and sometimes I look out and go, where's Eileen gone? And she takes herself into the alpaca's hut and she curls herself up in the corner of the hut. She's got 2 acres of space, but when it comes time for her to settle down, she wants to take herself to a quiet, calm space. The problem is, naturally, she would find things like caves or dens or bushes or hedges that provide that for them. In our world that they're not used to, we have to provide that for them. The best way to do that is to crate train them. Again, we could talk about this for the whole live stream, but I truly believe people's concern around crate training is that it's cruel to confine the dog. And you have to get over that, because it isn't the case when you do it right. Again, I wish we could have an open invite to come around to our house and see. Again, we have our crates in our utility, and usually if we're in the home, the utility door's shut. But if we open the utility door, the first place Eileen will take herself is into her crate. If the crate door's open, she'll take herself in if she wants to sleep, because she likes that atmosphere and that environment. All of our dogs do that. It's why you find that people take pictures of their dogs and they hide under beds. Dogs that get in the bath, or dogs that go into the closet, or squeeze in the weirdest of places, under chairs, under tables. It's so naturally ingrained into them. To provide that for them is incredibly beneficial, and it allows you to control the environment. When you control the environment, that's one of the biggest variables to success or failure, and it is now under your control because you're controlling that environment. You then, when they're outside of the crate, you provide extensive levels of obedience work, exercise, manners, socialization. You're controlling those variables. You're providing leadership to the dog. You're controlling that variable. Then you can't fail. You are setting yourself up for success in every facet of the imagination. Don't control the environment and you are naturally setting your dog up to fail, which then leaves you in a difficult situation. You come home, your dog's torn up your sofa, your natural inclination is to want to challenge and correct and tell that dog off. But that behaviour happened a while ago, and you have a split-second window to to correct a dog's behaviour in the moment, otherwise it's too late and you can't correct it. So then people will come home, and toilet training's a classic one. The dog had an accident 3 hours ago, you come home and there's a pile in the corner. So angry, take the dog and I rub its nose in it. It's like, but you're a balance trainer, will you believe in corrections? Like, yeah, but not nonsense corrections that don't work. Now all you're doing is the behaviour that was happening was wherever the dog was when you came storming into the room. So now the behaviour that's been associated with the correction was you coming home, or the dog being on the sofa, or the dog lying down on the rug. There's no connotation of it being the act of them having the toilet. Therefore, you have made the mistake. The dog chewed the sofa, the dog had the accident on the floor because of you, because you didn't control the environment and you didn't set them up for success. What's the best way to control the environment? Crate train your dogs. There's no... To me, there's no argument. There really is no argument about it. If you understand dogs, if you've had the experience with dogs, if you understand what the most frequent problem behaviours are with dogs, if you understand why so many dogs go to shelters, there is no debate, there's no discussion. Crate training is absolutely essential and provides a happy, joyous experience for your dog, and there's not an ounce of cruelty in it. If you leave them stuffed in there for 14 hours a day and give them no exercise, then you're a scumbag and you are being cruel. But that's like saying... again, you can criticise any tool that a harness is cruel because you smother your dog with it. It's used in the wrong way. The right tool used in the right way can be excellent. Used in the wrong way can be terrible. Understand what you're doing and you'll be a high-level K9 leader with a wonderful dog. Before I went off on one then.
Oh, Steph, you got some TikToks out of that.
There's some editing to be done at that clip.
I don't even know where to go now.
That was a waffle fest.
It was a waffle fest. And now, do you want a related question or do you want a completely different question?
If there's like frequently asked related questions, if it makes sense, like.
So it's a specific question, but it makes sense to follow on from what you just said. So.
Where are we at with the big camera, by the way, before you ask it? Have we got time?
Oh, we got 6 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
So Jacob has a 7-month-old Great Pyrenees.
Great Pyrenees, yeah. Beautiful dogs.
The goal is that they'll be able to leave the crate door open when they're away so that he can guard.
Yeah.
How do we start this process?
Excellent question, and that's probably the only criticism to crate training that I think is a fair criticism. So actually a wonderful question, and I believe that guarding is what a great question. I'm trying to keep this under 6 minutes.
Yeah, I'm watching the clock now.
Because we're in a similar position. So Puppy, our rescue dog, is still sleeping in her crate because of the way that she spent the first 12 weeks of her life. She still needs a crate to control that environment. To not do so means I'm setting her up to fail and we have accidents. When she's in a crate, we have no accidents and she loves being in there, so it's just a win-win. Eventually, I would like her to get to a point where she's able to patrol the whole home. And again, the crate door's open, she can come in for a sleep. If she hears something, she can come up, get out, do a job, she can sound the alarm, she can bark, she can do her patrols of the home. Eileen's there already. We still keep them together, but Eileen doesn't need to sleep in a crate anymore. To be honest, she'd probably sleep through a burglary anyway. She's a pretty useless guard dog, but that's how I do it. So I talked about starting small with controlling the environment and then slowly bringing that circle out. That's all you're doing. So you don't need your 10-week-old Great Pyrenees to guard your home. It's no end.
7 months.
It's 7 months now, okay, even so. So you don't need, I would say, you're probably 5 months to 11 months, from 12 to 18 months, you're going to start to see reliable guarding instincts, maybe even older because it takes them a longer time to mature. So I would be starting, say for people that are watching that are interested in this from day one, I'd probably do crate training exclusively for the first couple of months. And then when I'm in the home, obviously when we're in the home and I can watch, the dogs are allowed to be out of the crate and with us, but I'd start to be, I'm going to pop out for a minute or two into the garden, I'm going to give them a bit of free time. I'm going to kind of keep half an eye on, and if it goes badly, I know that they're not ready for it. If it goes well and they're settled, maybe you've got a bed for them that's not in the crate, or maybe you want them to come in and out of the crate, then excellent. Just kind of observe it and just start small and build out slowly, build out slowly. One of our members of staff at the minute is raising a livestock guardian, a Turkish Kangal, similar principle. And she wants the Kangal to be able to roam all of her land, as well as then come into the barn where some of the animals come in at night, so she can protect the animals outside and they can protect the animals in the barn. And again, he's still being crate trained right now, and I think he's probably of a similar age and has only just been allowed to be off his tether when he's outside. She's been crate training and tether training to do that, to control the environment and allow a little bit more freedom at a time. And when she felt comfortable that his maturity and his skill set and his understanding of her rules, boundaries and expectations is increased, his level of freedom can increase with it. It's the same with children. You don't let your 4-year-old child go wandering around town on their own because they're not ready to do it. They don't walk themselves to the park and go to the skate park skating on their own at 4 years old. They're not ready. You give, and obviously some parents are more controlling and nervous than others. Some people give kids freedom younger than others. Some don't let them ever leave the home until they're adults. But within reason, most people accept that as you get older, your children are allowed a little bit more freedom. They can start to go and play with their friends. They don't need accompanying, but they're not going from being accompanied all the time to being able to go to nightclubs on their own instantly. That's a gradual process over time. You need to treat your dogs with the same. The good thing is it doesn't take 18 years like children. You can do it in a year to 18 months, but it still needs to be slow and steady. They expect too much too soon. And I think ultimately they want a magic wand. And I have this problem now and I want it fixing now. And I don't want there to be any work involved, any kind of consistent hard work involved. That isn't the case with dog training, I'm afraid to say. It requires work. You just need to know what the work is, and then you need to dedicate yourself to that work calmly, consistently, and with loving leadership. Leadership is everything. But leadership and love aren't two separate things. You can love your dog and lead your dog, and ultimately I truly believe that leadership is love.
There you go.
Do you want to start the big camera and stop it again?
Yeah, I've got like a minute left, so I may as well do it now.
Yeah, just quickly do it now. Good place to start, and then we'll get ready to rock and roll straight to the next question. Yeah, I understand, so let's quickly carry on talking about that while you find your next question then. Like the Scandinavian countries wanting to ban crate training, I would assume that comes, or that they have, comes from a collection of stories of people abusing animals, utilising confinement, aka crates. Like I was going back, that's where I'm a strong advocate for the use of tools like prong collars and e-collars, because they're simply a tool. And for me, it's like, well, where do you draw the line? Because the tool inherently itself isn't cruel at all. It's how that tool is being used, which is then the subjective line of whether that's a cruel implementation of that tool or not. So to say that crates are cruel just is inaccurate. Rather than banning it, why don't we look at educating people better on them and the appropriate use of them and the appropriate type of person that should be getting dogs in the first place? Same with prong collars. If you're going to ban prong collars, then to me you need to ban flat collars, because flat collars cause far more harm to dogs than a prong collar does, because they're not being used in the correct way. I believe the same to be true of harnesses. People go, my dog's pulling, so I put it on a harness because that'll stop it hurting its neck. All I see in that situation, when you've got a reactive dog and it's pulling, I, in a lot of cases, see that as far more cruel, because with the understanding that I have, I see a dog that is psychologically damaged, that is living in a state of anxiety and fear, and is constantly in this perpetual cycle of fight or flight because of the poor implementation of the tools by the owner and the poor knowledge by the owner. So it's the implementation of the tool that determines whether that tool is cruel or actually it's an incredible piece of equipment that when used properly is wonderful. Obviously you can make all the cheesy analogies of hammers and spanners and stuff, and they absolutely make sense, but in the realms of dog training, to misunderstand a tool and to say that tool is cruel is just fundamentally uneducated. Then people get into their echo chambers online. People get tribal. That's where you see the positive only versus the balance stuff that we do our best to not get involved with, because it doesn't help the dogs. It hinders the dogs because it hinders progress, because we want to be putting our arms around people and helping people and bringing them in and educating them. And I listen to those people, and then I try and make a salient argument back, but I'm very rarely listened to back. That's where it gets frustrating. And that's what I would encourage all the people listening to this waffle to take away from it. It's to do your, don't just take my word for it. I'm honoured that a lot of you will. And I hope that I've kind of earned that trust through my openness, my honesty, my self-reflection, my desire to learn and study all implementations and applications and tools and theories of dog training has formed my opinion, and I hope that opinion is then valid and worth listening to. But go and listen to the positive only guys. Go and listen to the really tough guys on the other end of the scale. Come and listen to the guys like myself that sit nicely in the middle and are very balanced, and then form your own opinion. And then at least you can make your opinion from a place of being educated on all sides. Obviously, I know it's a lovely world to live in where people have got time to do that. And hopefully we kind of bridge that gap, and I've earned that trust from you, hopefully, if you decide to listen to our advice. But that's what it's informed by.
You're on one.
I am on one. Fired up.
Not quite sure.
I've been filming course content, so my mind's in overdrive, theory and academic stuff.
I'm just thinking about how I've got to go to the dentist later.
Next question. Let's keep this party going.
Right, here's one. This is a really old one, so the person's probably gone now. I've had this saved on my phone for about 20 minutes. Is it common for puppies to bite females and children within the household and not really bite males?
Okay, if I could rephrase that question, I could give you a one answer response. Is it common for puppies to, bite?
Yeah.
Bite certain people in the household and not others? Yes, that is very common. To simplify that down to gender, I would say no, that's not common. What I would suggest if that was me coming round doing like an in-person consultation, gender and age gets removed off the table completely for me. What I look at is energy, leadership, assertiveness, communication skills with a dog. All of those things are what causes behaviours to happen like that, which yes, are very common. What the dog is not doing is going, you're a girl, you're a child, I'll bite you. You're a man, I won't bite you. That's not what the dog's doing. More likely, especially a young puppy, it's kind of a hierarchy, pack dynamic type, systematic approach to litter mates versus authoritarian positions, and who is it appropriate to do that behaviour with and who is it not appropriate to do that behaviour with. That is all formed by operant conditioning, essentially, which is how dogs learn, which is why I always come back to the importance of leadership. A dog might do that behaviour to somebody in a leadership position within its hierarchy, and then how that leader responds to that, whether it then corrects that behaviour or reinforces that behaviour, will very quickly establish whether that puppy continues to do that behaviour. What I would suggest in your home is happening is that the men in your home they may be subconsciously doing this and unaware of it, they are naturally being assertive and appropriately correcting that behaviour, which has meant it's now not happening to them. Yourself, if this is the wife asking, and the females and the kids in the home, maybe are bringing a higher energy, a more playful energy, and are, again, subconsciously, it doesn't mean you're doing this on purpose, are reinforcing that behaviour, probably through early on thinking that it was playful and allowing them to get away with it. So a hierarchy, a dynamic has been formed based on that level of leadership and assertiveness within the pack dynamics that is your home. You then need to kind of restructure that, which is why I always come back to the point of that every human in that home needs to be that dog's calm, consistent leader. And the adults in that home have a duty and care and responsibility, especially when there's children, to ensure that that's the case. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's an excellent question. First of all, you have to be self-reflective and humble enough to accept, okay, maybe I've messed up and it is my fault. Brilliant, that's the starting point. If you're humble enough to do that, we can move forward positively. If not, you'll continue to make excuses, presume it's to do with gender and that your dog's psychotic and has an issue with a certain gender, which won't be the case. And then that'll just be a recipe for disaster, and that's another kind of question. But like I say, if you can have that humbleness to then positively move forward, then superb. You then need to learn how to be a calm, consistent leader. With the adults, that's much easier. And there's lots of drills that you can do. Threshold drills are wonderful for this. Our sit-stay break at meal times are wonderful for this. With children, it becomes much, much more difficult, especially the younger that they are, to try and explain to your children to bring their energy levels down, to not want to play in a litter mate style, to carry themselves with an assertive leadership demeanour is obviously, it's difficult to explain that to adults, let alone to young children. With our children at home, with our youngest, who is getting quite good actually, he's actually very naturally assertive. Even with our dogs that tower over him, he'll push them out the way, he won't stand for them being rough, and he'll hold his ground quite naturally. Our eldest isn't naturally as assertive as he is, and I've taught him this kind of concept of strong soldier. So when the energy's getting too much and he's uncomfortable, he knows to stand up and stand like a strong soldier, and he'll no, and it's cute, and obviously that's then my duty of care to not leave him in a situation where we can't control the environment, but I'll then come in, or Rachel will come in and we'll address the situation, we bring the energy level down, and through repeating that over weeks, they now know that he is not a litter mate. That's not how it, and he now, you'll see him, it's so funny, even if he doesn't think you're watching, and he'll be outside and he's running with them in the paddock, and you'll see him stand bolt upright, and you know that they're getting too excited for him and he doesn't feel comfortable, so now he's standing up. And over time, as I'm able to educate him better on how to handle those situations, but that's a good foundation of strong, assertive energy, and then being able to communicate what you want. And now he can have two giant Mastiff breeds sit and wait for their food, and he'll put it on the floor and they won't move a muscle until he tells them that they can have their food, even while it's right under their nose and there's drool pouring out of their jowls. And that's through a process of us helping him do that. And that's what essentially you need to achieve. That's what you need to get to. So kind of, yes, it's normal for those things to happen. Is it good? Absolutely not. Can it be fixed? Yes, very easily. It's just whether you're willing to put the work in. It's an easy fix in terms of what to do. The problem is that what to do requires effort, consistency, dedication, long term, forever. This isn't, again, paying me or someone like me to come in and wave a magic wand at your dog and it be fixed. This would be a situation of us coming in, me looking at the dog and going, right, cool. 99.9% of this meeting is going to be me talking to you and talking you through how to deal with this. That's why I'm an educator of humans first and foremost, long before you actually working with a dog.
Wonderful.
Wunderbar.
Does that mean wonderful?
I think so.
I feel like you're making that up and it's like offensive.
Imagine if I got cancelled for that. That'd be a way to go.
There was a question earlier that kind of links back to what you were just saying. And someone asked earlier, they've been helping their neighbour to train their dog, but they're now finding that the dog only listens to them and won't listen to their neighbour.
It's exactly the same principle. Exactly the same. It's super common. That I first saw this, and I think this is where I've just had a natural affinity for this, and as just literally as long as I can remember. We had Jack Russells growing up. My mum and dad are probably watching this right now, and sorry to offend you, but they weren't brilliant canine leaders when I was a child. And the Jack Russells oftentimes were little terrorists. And then my granddad, who was a bit of a travelling man, and he'd rock up in his caravan, and he'd come in, and I remember being a really young kid and not being able to fathom why is it that those Jack Russells are behaving like that with him, yet with us and with my mum and dad, polar opposites. And that's, like I said, that was planted in my head as a young child that there's a way in which somebody can carry themselves. And he never trained those dogs, never saw him out there with a pouch of food, never treated them once, but through assertive energy, he had them walking beautifully to heel. They never left his side. Even if he got home and let him off the leads, they would just follow him around everywhere. And I'd be like, these dogs aren't interested in me. I'm like, again, a little kid who want to play with the dogs. And they just want to be. Now I understand what was happening there. He wouldn't have been able to vocalize. He was just doing what he does. Some people are just very naturally kind of gifted with that ability to carry themselves. I think you see it with kind of people that end up being successful in this field. I think I'm lucky enough to have that natural kind of energy that lends itself well for me working with these kinds of dogs and these kinds of cases. But that doesn't mean that people that aren't naturally that way inclined can't learn how to do it. And I find the most joy in taking people that are very kind of passive, timid, nervous, anxious, scared, and seeing them thrive, not just with their dogs, but in life, when they realise that through a little bit of repetition and practice, you can start to instill those beliefs in yourself and that confidence can rise. And you see these tiny people that were nervous that for some reason ended up with a Cane Corso, and now they're walking shoulders back, head up with this huge, glorious animal by their side, not making a peep. And across the road, there's a chihuahua trying to tear its face off, and that confidence that oozes out of a situation like that. I don't know if you know what goosebumps.
Are you talking about me?
You were one of them. Yeah, I've seen you thrive over the years. But it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing. It does have ramifications wider than simply your relationship with your dog. It's not really a territory we ventured into yet, but it's something I would love to study more. That's a topic I could definitely write a book on. It's how dogs can inform from a therapy perspective, a mental health perspective, through to a leadership perspective, through to a patience, and the widespread ramifications that a good relationship with a dog can have on the rest of your life. I think is a wonderful topic. But again, there's a few more bigger problems I'm trying to address first.
Wish I could see your granddad rocking up with all his Jack Russells. Apparently Wunderbar is German for great.
Okay, I was close enough.
Get
So
cancelled just yet.
That's always nice to know. I've got another day in me.
Until tomorrow. Sorry, I've got lost. There's so many questions.
Brilliant,
now.
good.
It's a little bit overwhelming. What command would you give if your dog was doing an undesired behaviour?
So I don't necessarily call it a command. I call it a verbal correction. This is a topic again. I'm just going to do it. I'm going off on one. Verbal corrections. Again, it's one of those things. It's difficult because you can come and watch me interact with my dogs. And one of the things, someone was over at our farm the other day, and my Tosa Inu cross, potentially American Pit Bull, so a fighting dog, a catch dog, prey-driven, game-bred dog, was starting to get a little bit rambunctious and started to jog towards the alpacas while we were out there with them. And with nothing more than a puppy, enough, it instantly stopped. She came straight back, dropped into heel, sat down. That was a verbal correction. I let her know that is not acceptable behaviour. Now, why is it that I can achieve that with such a potentially dangerous dog, and one that is very much inclined to chase, catch, maim, injure other animals, big animals? An alpaca would be nothing for Tosa Inu or a pack of Tosa Inus. Yet there's certain people that can't get a Labrador to stop nipping them or stop jumping up, even though they're doing that same Labrador enough. And what's happening there? That topic to me is fascinating because it goes back to exactly what we were talking about earlier with that energy. That's where the people in those people's homes where the dog bites some people but doesn't others, they have decided through the interactions, through the relationships, through the energy with those people, who and what is applicable with who. And dogs always want to strive out of boundaries and comfort zones, and they very much are driven much more so by their emotions than we are. They're not as kind of cognizant as we are, so we have to have the ability to overcome those drives and emotions. And if you don't have assertive leadership to be able to overcome those emotions, how on earth are you going to get a Labrador to stop chasing a chicken if that chicken is far more interesting to it than your ability to stop it is? Now, you can either do that by being more interesting, and that would be more of a bribery type relationship, or you can do it through a balanced leadership and potentially correction based methodology where the fear of, and I'll use the word fear, let's not beat around the bush with that, the consequences are greater than the drive that they're being driven by, which is enough to get them to stop doing that behaviour. I am a firm advocate for that you need to master both. That's why this kind of circle is called balanced trainers. We use all these assets. That's why we use lots of food work and positive reinforcement, but it's why we also will utilise corrections if required. Now, when it comes to corrections, I'm a firm believer that your correction carries a number on a scale of 1 to 10. For me, my verbal correction, because I've practiced it so much, maybe because of my tone of voice and my size and the way I'm able to project my voice, I think my verbal correction sits at about a 4 or 5 out of 10. Above that has to then go into physical corrections. Then you have the dog's behaviour on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, if you're trying to solve a problem dog behaviour that's a level 7 with a level 4 correction, the level 7 wins, the level 4 correction doesn't win. Now, if you're trying to solve a level 4 behaviour with a level 7 correction, that will win, but I would argue that it's overkill. So the skill here is to understand what level of behaviour is being displayed and what is the minimum amount of correction to achieve the desired outcome of seeing that behaviour stop, cease, happen less frequently, and then have the ability to redirect them to the positive behaviour where we then can pay it, reinforce it, positive, all the wonderful things that we want to do. Again, it's the same in humans. If you do this bad thing, you are going to prison. Depending on the scale, the severity of that bad thing will depend on the level of correction that is being given. In some places, all the way up to a level 10, which is death. Maybe a slap on the wrist or a verbal warning or a ticket being level 1. We have corrections, and we all mostly, other than maybe capital punishment, agree that that is a required part of civilization to keep humans in check, let alone dogs, which, like I say, are 99.8% DNA related to a wolf. They're wild predator animals that naturally live in correction. It's how they communicate with each other. Very, very little positive reinforcement, lots of correction. I personally believe it's nicer to do a much wider balance, and I lean very heavily towards positive reinforcement over correction. But if you don't have that there, then you don't have the ability to scale up that. And if the behavior is a level 7 and the food that you have in your pocket is a level 3, then you're not going to be able to bribe them away from that behavior. You must have the ability to match or go one level above if you want to stop a behavior from happening. That's why so many positive only people can't have excellent recall, because the thing that is driving the dog is higher than the level of reinforcer that you have, even if it's the tastiest food in the world. My Labrador would be a classic example of that. Him chasing a bird is a level 8 or 9, maybe even a 10 behaviour for him. There is not a food on the planet, even as a Labrador that's very food driven, that goes past a 5. So to be able to recall him away from that, I have to be able to match or increase that behaviour elsewhere. Now, what I like to do in these situations, bringing this full circle back to verbal correction, is I stop behaviours before they escalate. Now, that comes from my experience of seeing warning signs, seeing when things are starting to ramp. So before I let it get to a level 8 and it's building, and he's spotted that chicken, and he's on level 2, level 3, enough. Or the Cesar Millan classic, those are, bring that back down. Before it even bring it back down. That way I never need to take my levels of correction higher. Now, in the case of let's use my Labrador running after a chicken, and if he's going towards a road and say he's on a long line, I would absolutely rather pop him on a long line than him run out and get run over by traffic. If that's a level 8 and he ends up hitting it at full speed and he makes himself fling round, I will choose that over him getting run over or him going and killing another animal. That's my duty of care and my responsibility to do that. If I can't do that, then you shouldn't allow your dog off lead, because then you've set him up to fail, and that's a different conversation. You can achieve that with an e-collar. An e-collar is a wonderful tool for that. The problem is that now we're going into a deeper conversation around corrections. If we're going to advocate for corrections, like I say, I believe that on the scale of 1 to 10, whatever the behaviour is, you should match or go one level above. The problem is now I'm talking about the openness and the efficacy of corrections, which is, again, undeniable. I won't have the debate that corrections don't work, because they do. And they're a required part of having well-behaved, safe canine companions. I'm not having that debate anymore. They absolutely work and are required. The problem is, you've now heard me say that, so in your mind, you might go, well, Will says you can correct a dog and that you can physically correct a dog. Where I get concerned, and I feel that I have a moral obligation to explain this at depth, is that the problem is, you might have a level 2 behaviour, but I've now just equipped you with a level 9 correction. And the wrong kind of person with either the wrong mentality or just a lack of experience will then reach for a level 9 correction to solve a level 2 behaviour, when they should be right down at the bottom with a level 2 or 3. I believe this is where all of the criticism from Cesar Millan came from. And we all watched Dog Whisperer and we saw him using pretty stern physical corrections and alpha rolls. People watched that and went, oh, my little puppy's being a bit annoying, I'll alpha roll it and I'll grab it by the scruff of the neck and I'll pin it on the floor. And they jump into these level 9 and 10 corrections to solve a problem that's a level 1 or 2. That with experience, and even someone like Cesar Millan would never jump to that level, because he has the experience, the assertive energy with nothing more than a click, or even just some body posturing. Level 1, level 2 corrections and communications would bring that down. Now, obviously for a TV show, it's great to have the really dramatic transformations. Those dramatic level 7, 8, 9, 10 behaviours need level 7, 8, 9, 10 corrections. But again, subconsciously, accidentally, you're equipping the wrong person and you're putting a potential weapon in their hands that then a positive only advocate can point at that and go, that's why you shouldn't correct a dog. And it's like, oh, whoa, no. I agree with you. That person corrected that dog terribly. Extremely poor on that person's behalf. But to now write off all corrections is just false. So if your dog isn't listening to your verbal correction, it means that your verbal correction carries no weight, and that behaviour is going past the weight that your verbal correction carries. You can bump your verbal corrections weight up that scale by your assertive leadership and the relationship that you have with your dog, which is why I always talk about going back to the bottom of the pyramid and focusing on your leadership skills. A strong, calm, consistent, assertive leader's verbal correction will carry far more weight. I can come into someone's home, Will, my puppy won't stop biting me. We've tried we've tried the verbal correction, we're pulling her hair out, we don't know what to do. I walk into that home, that puppy bites me, and I use my verbal correction with my body language, and it's done. And I go, cool, nice one, see you in a bit. That's terrible. It only makes me look good, but it doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem is you understanding these theories. The problem is this is boring for you to listen to, most probably, and a lot of people will be clicking away. Those are the people, though, that are going to make those mistakes. Those of you that are listening to me waffle right now are the people that are going to go, that makes sense. And it's you people that are going to have wonderful canine companions. It's you people that are going to be equipped with a well-stocked toolbox and a solid understanding of those levels and how to address any given situation, to be able to be fluid and bespoke to what's happening, the scenario, the different situations that can occur. It's you people that are going to succeed. My job as an educator in this realm is to try, where possible, to simmer that, all of that I've just waffled about, down into an easily digestible soup that you can consume easily and understand easily. The problem is a lot of these things aren't designed to be that way. The problem is we live in a culture where you want the fix now, you want the easy fix now, you want the answer now, I want to pay somebody else to fix it now, and that just simply doesn't exist. And I hope that kind of massive waffle fest, again, I truly believe if you stuck through that and listened to it, light bulbs should be going off in your head, and I promise you, if you lean into that, you will have huge levels of success. And I've seen it over and over again. The people that like that stuff and lean into it, listen to it, study it, are the people that succeed. The people that have clicked off because it's boring are the people that will have a nightmare dog. It really is that simple.
There's a few people just following on from that asking if you've got any books that you recommend for that.
Am I meant to do a shameless plug of my book
Well, you can do
right
a shameless
now?
plug of your book, yeah, but that is kind of specifically about puppies. I don't know if you know of any other
Well,
books.
I called my book Raising and Training Perfect Puppies, The Missing Secret to Success. It's kind of like a bit of a clickbait title, really. The actual book is The Missing Secret to Success. It's around leadership. It's around everything we just talked about. So I won't lie, my shameless plug, my book is very much designed for that.
Available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon right now. Cesar Millan's books, they're old. I reread them again recently, and as I'm rereading it, I'm like, man, this guy had it years ago, decades ago. And whatever happened with that huge pushback, again, I think that's what happened through the glamorization, the showbiz element of what he was doing, accidentally caused a huge problem for him. Yeah, Cesar Millan's book, Be the Pack Leader, I think is the OG one. Thanks so much for watching this episode, guys. Remember, you can join us live on Instagram, so make sure you come and follow us if you're not following us already. That's how you can ask your questions and be a part of the conversation. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next episode.